Yo, welcome back to Brandon Smooth TV. I am back at you with another review. This is the full series, y'all. Loki, episodes 1 through 6 on Disney Plus. I had to bring in author Phillip, who happens to be my go-to person for everything comic book related. He is basically one of the watchers. If you have any questions, this is who you go to. Also, he happens to be my uncle. So, Unc, how you doing today?
Doing all right, Neff. And first and foremost, thank you. I'm honored just to be on the show. So I feel like one of the young people. So thank you for having me on.
I had to bring you on. The pleasure is mine. And look, I got a lot of questions too because
I got a lot of answers.
The series was crazy. Loki was the best series, I think, in my opinion, that came out so far.
All right.
Now, I have to not include the ones from Netflix because Jessica Jones was off the chain.
Good series.
Daredevil to me was better.
Oh yeah,
especially
very
that
good.
second
Very
season.
good.
Yeah, the Kingpin did. They need to put him on.
Bloody.
A couple other shows too. I like Luke Cage too.
Yeah.
It got a little campy at the end with the villains, but that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that later. So just overall, I did want to ask you overall since the 6th episode just came out. How do you feel about the series overall?
Well, when you look at the whole series. The things I try to take out of it is that, and you know I'm a person that does notes. I got a few notes over here.
Amen.
For the most part, the TVA is like a mirror for Loki. So for the most part, he's forced to look at himself. He's forced for the first time to look at himself as a human being. And he realizes he doesn't like, what he sees.
Without the powers, right? Without all that. Mm-hmm.
And I think with anybody in the whole world, that when you get a chance to see yourself in the mirror and you realize, wow, this is some things that I could fix. These are some things that maybe this wasn't so well.
Right.
That's it. So that's what the TVA does. There's 3 things in life that I think every human being needs to take a look at. One of them is self-love, which he's going through because he had a version of himself, Sylvie, that he fell in love with. It was a female version. That's the self-love side. Self-reflection. When you had Lady Sif that just basically just continued to go through the time loop and just kick him in the nuts. And then finally he got to a point, pain is a good teacher.
It is the best.
So he got a chance to do self-reflection on that one. And the last one, he got a chance to forgive himself. That's it. So that's the 3 elements: self-love, self-reflection, and forgiving yourself. And that's what I got out of the whole series.
I'm glad you brought that up too. Episode 1, I think, even though I like the later episodes, that was a pivotal episode. When he had Loki at the end, Mobius's character, played by Owen Wilson, he sat him down in that chair and really started asking deep questions to Loki that I'm not going to lie, probably a lot of us didn't even think about, but he started looking at himself differently. He always had this glorious purpose, just like the name of the first episode.
Right.
But now he started to see that it was more out there, actually reflect on his actions and actually kind of really be held accountable because, people in Asgard, Thor, his dad held him accountable here and there, but like people outside of that. So I thought that was cool.
Well, one of the things I think about glorious purpose. The whole episode was set up just so that they could just strip away everything that he was. They took away his powers. They basically put him in a jumpsuit and made him a criminal.
They did.
They took him to trial. And you got to understand, for a prince of Asgard, this is something that's just very uncommon. So for the most part, they took him, they stripped everything down, they made him human. And then that's the first part where he meets Mobius. And Mobius, he just starts working on him from the beginning. He's like, you're a spoiled child.
Yeah.
That you got father issues. And he's messing with him on a mental level to a point to where it's just like, you know what? I don't like this. And he's got the first time to take a look at, somebody is even better at this game than I am.
Right.
So.
And it was a situation he couldn't just like slip himself out of, I seen. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Since his powers, because normally he would just, do something mischievous and get out. But Loki in that episode, like you said, he did get stripped down. Also, I did want to ask you this too. This is one of my big questions that I have.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can answer it, probably. Why didn't the TVA come for Thanos? Because, with Loki's crime, yes, he took the Tesseract, we know, in Endgame. Well, actually, he took it in 2012 when we went back in time, and went into a different timeline. But why didn't they come for Thanos, or could they? If he had the Infinity Stone power.
I don't think they needed to. As you can see, they had all the Infinity Stones and they were powerless. Okay, I don't think they needed to. I think the TVA, they saw the variance, they saw the branch that came out from the normal time stream, but they saw the correction. And one of the things is with mistakes, it's not a mistake unless you don't make a correction. Once you make the correction, it's not a mistake anymore. That's life. That's a life lesson.
Right.
So they already saw that the Avengers had popped forward, that 14 million to 1 chance that Doctor Strange came up with. They already saw that, predicted it, and they said, okay, we already know that point's going to happen, so we don't need to mess with that.
That's insane, and that leads into my second question. Who do you think knew about the TVA? Because you remember, was it Infinity War? No, it was Endgame. Endgame, when the Hulk went back in time and he had to go get the Time Stone from the Ancient One, I believe.
Right.
I think 2 characters, maybe it might be more. I think the Ancient One definitely knew about the TVA, and I think Doctor Strange, with all his power, probably knew about the TVA. Do you think they knew that this organization existed?
Right. Definitely the Ancient One, just for the simple fact, she had the Time Stone.
Okay.
So she was connected to the Timekeepers, which was connected to the Time Variance Authority. All right. Okay. So as long as you have this Time Stone, you're going to be connected to that. Okay. Doctor Strange, I don't know if he knew about it or not.
He's not the Sorcerer Supreme yet.
That's it. Okay. But at the same time, who's to say that he didn't learn about him between Civil War and Endgame? So
that's true. That's true.
And or Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
He could have learned about it between that time. So who knows? But at the same, when I think about those. That's an iffy.
It is. I don't think it's something that can be answered yet.
Right.
Because, we still got some more stuff to go, so that's awesome, too. And then, last but not least, because I just watched episode 6. I know we're going to go through each episode, but real quick. That, you seen at the end of episode 6, they had, the sacred timeline, but it starts splitting into different ways, like a branch on a tree. Is this leading into Doctor Strange and the multiverse of madness? And WandaVision, sorry. I had to combine them, but I think both of them kind of.
Okay. If I think about that one, I think the reason why we have the TVA and the emergence of Loki and all things scientific and mystical is just for the simple fact that Marvel, they're very smart. So if there's ever any things where you say, how does this timeline or storyline link into this one? There's 2 things you can use. You can use time or you can use magic. Okay? If you want to explain away something, you can go into Doctor Strange's universe and he said, well, I did a spell like Harry Potter. And boom, I changed this and then everybody forgot about it. Okay, that explains that. But you can't do everything with magic. Sometimes you got to have a little scientific approach. And as Tony Stark is very famous for saying, time is tricky. You mess with time, sometimes it messes back.
It does.
And that's where you got to have timekeepers and the Time Variance Authority.
That's why they even have a job, right?
Now, if anybody would have known about time, that would have been, and I know he's not in the universe right now, but Reed Richards, he would have known about it. And I think Tony Stark, he was just on the edge of it when he did that Mobius effect.
And that was crazy that Tony, it seemed like, I think it took longer in that movie for him to figure it out, but it seemed like he figured that shit out super fast. I'm sorry, it really did. Right. But Tony he was already ahead of the game. When he went in and asked that, of course, Bruce Banner changed somebody into a baby, he already knew they was in there messing up, so that was a good point. Now, as far as the TVA is concerned, and it was kind of a little murky for me, their variants, they have their own timelines.
Right.
But they're brought in to work for the TVA to stop other variants like them and basically prune them. Go into the pruning thing for me too, because I'm like, the pruning, I know they send them to a void, basically. It's like a void jail at the end of time, something like that. I get that, but the people that they select to be TVA agents, how does that work?
Well,
because there's a plot hole in the last episode, I think. Huh?
Right.
Okay.
It's not a plot hole.
She's the principal or something?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Okay.
I won't get... Well, anybody who's watching this, this may be a spoiler.
Sorry, spoilers.
But this is something that it needs to be discussed. It's not a plot hole. It's a lead into King the Conqueror. And once more, this plot hole will be explained once you get into, Immortus, the Scarlet Centurion. These are all different characters
I ain't even heard of. Right.
And but we allude to King the Conqueror at the very end, and what is his name? He who remains.
He was like the last.
Yeah. That's the name they use.
He never said Kang either. Did you notice that?
No.
Like, some people call me the Conqueror. He was very nonchalant about everything. The actor that played him, Jonathan. He did an excellent job. But
I've got his name here somewhere. Let me see.
He did an excellent job in that episode. And
Jonathan Majors.
That's not the worst. I had to ask you this, not to skip, but like Kang the Conqueror. That version of him that we seen was the nice version. He said his version's way worse than me.
Oh yes. You have the Scarlet Centurion.
Okay.
Let me see. You have all types of different people under the King universe, but I'll tell you this.
Is he one person or initially?
He started as one person, but once more, time's tricky. So you have a version of you that maybe stayed in your home state. You have a version of me that never got married. You got a version of you that has a dog and 2 kids.
Man.
So for the most part, whenever these alternate versions of you come out, all of them are not going to be fully good, and not of them all of them are going to be fully bad. Just like Loki.
Because it's almost every different type that you can think of, even down to an alligator look. Yeah.
Right. But the thing I was thinking about with Kang, he has many different ways that he's been diverged so that he can fill in the timelines or any time holes that are in the Loki universe that are not being explained.
Okay.
And without going too much into it, I'm interested just to see how the King universe is going to go, because he can go all types of different ways.
He reminds me of other characters. I don't like to venture off, but that's what we do as comic book people, of course.
Right.
He reminds me of like a Vandal Savage type character.
Yes.
More of a, universal appeal, not just Earth, but he's been around so long, it's not really nothing you can tell him. Also, you brought up Dr. Doom when we were talking earlier, who arguably, to me, could be probably the most powerful Marvel villain because of his access to time. He's going back learning dark magic from back in the day, going in the future learning stuff that nobody know yet, and bringing it all in. So with Kang the Conqueror, his character, is he like higher than Galactus?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that high, but I'll say this. Like Loki, he is someone that is not fully good, not someone that is fully evil.
Okay.
And like Loki, sometimes people will look at him as a hero. Sometimes people will look at him as a villain. Like Loki, he
similar. Okay.
He has an agenda that he wants to complete for himself, but he also has an agenda that he's got to complete because he knows what's going to happen in the future. When he goes back in time the first time, he gets a chance to meet Loki, Thor, Odin, and all the Norse gods. And he gets a chance to experience them and understand that in this timeline, people are seeing these people as gods.
Right.
But in the 31st century, they're just normal people. They're below him. And that's it. So I think bringing the Loki timeline into the King timeline, it's a good bridge to fill in any holes that you may be missing in the Loki timeline.
That's going to be crazy, too. Kang the Conqueror reminds me of several characters. Trunks from Dragon Ball Z. Goddamn Terminator. Cable from the X-Men.
Yeah.
Characters that have to travel back in time because the future is so jacked up that they had to come back in time to try to save it. And come back as many times as possible. So that's awesome. I definitely like that. Now, going on with the series, because of course episode 3 or 4, was it 3 was Lamentus, I think?
Let me see here.
I did have a question about that.
Episode 3 was Lamentus, yes.
Okay. This is what intrigued me the most. When they were searching for Sylvie, we knew it was another variant, Loki variant. She was hiding and kind of avoiding detection by going to near apocalypse events. And when they went back to Pompeii, That was just awesome. That whole that to me, I was like nerding out, and I was watching it with somebody. I was like, "You don't know what's going on." They was like, "No." I was like, "This is Pompeii." I was like, "They showed it, but they didn't get it." Also, god dang, D.B. Cooper, and I was like, "Y'all don't know who D.B. Cooper is? I don't know this man who just disappeared. Said he was from another country." But I love when they try to tie history in with the comics because it makes it cool, and then it kind of gives you an answer for those mysteries that we'll never, have the answers to. But as far as hiding in the apocalyptic pockets, why do you think? Because they kind of explained it, but why do you think the TVA wasn't able to find them there? Was it because the time was so close to the timeline being erased that it don't matter? You know what I'm saying? Do you think that was like?
Well, okay, about that? I think about this. Okay. When I looked at episode 3, I made some notes, and sorry everybody, but I gotta take notes. When you get old,
we get to the end.
You learn to take notes, and you remember things. When it comes to lamentus, okay, if people look at the word lamentus, it means to lament. All right,
okay,
to think about things that you may be sorrowful for, or even sometimes happy events. So on lamentus, Sylvie, she charms and she creates memories. We find that about her. She can do that to Ravonna. She was able to do that and look into her mind and say, "Tell me about where the timekeepers are." She discovers that various memories have been blocked, and she also gets like the real honesty established, between her and Loki for the first time, because on the planet Lamentus, they're lamenting on, when I was a kid, I was taken early. And
hold on, was the planet kind of forcing them to do that?
No, it had nothing to do with that.
Okay, I'm making sure.
Yeah, but the title, Lamentus, I think that's what they were doing, is that when they got to that planet, it was in the middle of destruction, annihilation, and they just said, "Hey, it's all over for us, so let's talk about what created us." Loki, he sat there and opened up his heart and talked about, do you know what it's like to be adopted and to never be number one and to be the younger brother and to be this and that. And it's like, he was telling his tale about how he knew he would never be king of Asgard, but he also knew he would never be king of the Frost Giants because they got abandoned.
Their history, right.
Yeah. So that's what I got out of Lamentus. They just sat there and lamented over the things that they were sad about. And, it was kind of sad, but it humanized them. It made you, connect to them.
It does. I think that's why we all gravitate towards Loki's character in particular. Because, let's keep it a buck. Thor being the older brother is that jock at school, that popular person, not necessarily even the smartest person, but they always get all the regulation, the girls and stuff too. And Loki always had to play second fiddle to that. Also, Odin is an asshole dad sometimes. He keep it very blunt. At the end, he was cool, when he died in the MCU, but he's kind of
That's the way dads used to be.
I know, right? See, and the world was different back then. And I think that is needed too. But with Loki's character, like you said, he had to come to a realization that he is, even though he is adopted, he is Thor's brother. You know what I'm saying? Right. He is an Odin son. You know what I'm saying? He's part of that history. But he's still fighting with that. And now with the show, I think he can not separate himself from it, but now I think he has his own identity. You know what I'm saying?
Well, family.
Path.
I know Loki was adopted. Okay, they basically were fighting the Frost Giants.
Oh, question too, because it's here when we asked you,
yes.
Is that Loki's real mother? Sorry,
you're talking about no.
Okay.
Okay, so this is what happened. In the Marvel universe, it's a little different than the comic book universe. I'm sorry, not the comic book, but the Norse mythology universe.
Oh, okay.
Norse mythology universe. Okay, Loki was just a companion to Thor and Odin. He was not related at all. All right,
like an Alfred kind of.
He was just a companion. He was just somebody that traveled with him.
Just rolling. Okay.
The god of fire, the god of mischief.
Right.
Okay. In the Marvel universe, it was a war between the Frost Giants and the Asgardians, and the king or the ruler of the Frost Giants, they basically just abandoned Loki and just left him. And Odin found him, and Odin and his wife Frigga, they basically said, "Hey, we're going to adopt this child to be with our own." And he took on their appearance, and boom, that was it. He was a prince of Asgard.
Oh, okay.
All right, but he was still second fiddle to Thor.
Right.
All right, Thor was true blood, rightful lineage,
and
that's why Loki all the time did mischievous things to say, I'm better. Notice me. Maybe if I kill Thor off, maybe I'll be the first one. All these things that happen.
As a parent, and of course, I'm learning. I'm a young parent,
Right.
but your kids do fight for your affection, and it's hard to split up time between your kids. I swear, I try to at least do one thing with all 4 of my kids. It is so hard to do at least once a day, but we all got our things.
The oldest always gets the most time.
Yeah.
Some parents will sit there and say, I'm going to give all my kids equal time. But if you're born first, you're going to get the most time.
Yeah. Well, Luke and Leia is weird, but Leia knows she's daddy's girl. See, that's the one little up she got over her brother just because she's a girl. But yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Right.
But that's how it go, though. And she was the first one I see come out. So yeah, I digress on that. Our babies. Now, I did want to ask you about Sylvie, getting into her character. I've heard of Lady Loki before. Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but in the comics, Hela is Loki's daughter, right?
Right.
Okay. Sylvie, she's just another version of Loki from another universe, basically.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
I know that Marvel Comics, they like to do all types of mix-ups and switches and things like this. Okay, now if you look at Norse mythology, all right, Hela, she was the first daughter, and you got to understand Loki, he matched up with a female giant by the name of Angerboda, which means distress bringer. All right.
God dang.
So for the most part, first heir was Hela, goddess of death. Second heir was Jörmungand, which is the serpent that surrounds the world. And then the third one was Fenrir, which was the giant wolf. And the last one was Sleipnir, which is Odin's 8-legged horse. Dang. So everything he produced with this female frost giant turned into either the goddess of death or animals.
Oh,
so he has some power, and this frost giant, whoever he made it with, has some power. But that's just a little bit off. A little bit of stuff that's there. And you think about now on the Marvel side, the biological son of Loki, so that's why he's called Loki's son. Okay. And for the most part, abandoned and left to die, found by Odin, adopted, and second fiddle to Thor. So that's where you have a little bit of animosity. He never will be able to be the ruler of the frost giants, but he never ever will be the ruler of Asgard. So he's kind of in limbo. He's like thinking about, sometimes I'll do some good things, sometimes I'll do some bad things, but in the meantime, it's just what I do to get noticed.
Right, and moving forward, you can definitely see, I think Marvel's trying to, because he's always kind of been an anti-hero, especially in the Dark World, Thor Part 2, but they're definitely taking him down that route, which is good, too. Of course, Loki always thought he was like above humans. You even said it, Neil and all of that. So I said I definitely get that.
Those are the best villains.
Yeah, and they are too. Now, speaking of, not to get off the course too much, Thor: Love and War. Right. We got Natalie Portman taking over the role of Thor, and I know in the comics we've been having a female Thor for years. I personally, I liked Thor in Endgame, and I didn't. The parts I liked was we got to see Thor stripped down without all his power and the glory and, the looks and all of that. Right. But I feel like Captain America's scene did what Thor should have did on screen. If that makes sense, he beat him to the punch. How do you feel about that as far as Thor? I think Thor's getting the back seat a little bit now, and they're bringing up, the new character. Don't get me wrong. Chris Hemsworth, I've seen some pictures just recently released. He's back jacked, and he's ready for this movie. It's going to be a good movie, but how do you feel about Thor taking the back seat, number one? And then secondly, as far as Thor is concerned, is he going to get any more movies? I mean, or are they going, the other route?
Well, there's a thing I think about whether it's a TV series, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, whether it's a radio broadcast. There's a special effect in Hollywood that people, they miss all the time. And they wonder, why didn't this movie sell? Why was it so horrible? I hated this thing. I thought this was going to be number one movie of all time.
Right.
Well, it's one special effect, which is the greatest special effect. Beyond all the action parts and watching Vin Diesel talk about
right.
The special effect is called human emotion.
Okay.
And when you can touch somebody in the heart and make that tear fall and make them think about their own life, then that's it. I think this is the reason why Thor Chris Hemsworth, I think he's a great actor because I've seen him in many different films, and it's like, you know what? I think if you get past the good looks, there's some depth inside there and some longevity. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, he realized if I'm not touching people on a human level and bringing out their human emotion, whether it's me or Natalie Portman in the front, or Beta Ray Bill, which I hope they bring him into this deal.
Couple cameos too.
But we'll see. But it's like he knows he has to bring these other people in.
Okay.
Disney, okay, which back in my day it was Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, okay, Goofy, but now Disney has realized that audience is gone. If we're going to touch people on the human emotion, we need to find a powerhouse that touch people. Marvel Comics. They bought Marvel Studios. That's it. Star Wars. They took them out. And it's like they know the powerhouses that know how to bring human emotion, but they're bringing young ladies in now. Mm-hmm. They're bringing older men now. When you're 33, 53.
Right.
We're talking about the movies right now.
We are talking about it. That is crazy. I didn't think about that, too. And then, of course, Natalie Portman, V for Vendetta was one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. Right. She can bring, I didn't even look at it from that aspect because she can bring something else to it. Also, I think the reason why Marvel is beating DC is the same reason you just said, that emotional connection. We feel for these characters emotionally. Iron Man 3 didn't really have a lot of Iron Man in it. You know what I'm saying? But it was a good movie.